In this video I'll explain how to use the previous row of a data table using the R programming language. So without too much talk, let's dive into the R code. So if we want to use the Datatable package, we first need to install and load the Datatable package, as you can see in lines 2 and 3. I have installed the package already, so for that reason I'm just going to load it with line 3 of the code. So after running this line of code, we are able to use the functions of the Datatable package. Now in this video I will show you several examples, and all of these examples are based on the data table that we can create with lines 5 to 7. So if you run these lines of code, you can see that a new data table object is appearing at the top right, which is called data. And we can print this data table to the RStudio console by running line 8 of the code. And after running this line of code, you can see at the bottom the structure of our data table. And as you can see, our data table contains 5 rows and 3 columns, which are called x1, x2, and x3. Now let's assume that we want to use the previous row of the column x2 to perform a calculation. Then we can apply the code that you can see in line 10. And in this line of code, I'm specifying within the data table that I want to create a new column, which is called leg1. And in this column, I want to multiply the values in x1 times the legged version of the column x2. So in order to specify that, I'm using the shift function, which is provided by the Datatable package, and I'm applying this function to the name of the second column, which I want to shift. So if you run line 10 of the code, our data table is updated, as you can see by running line 11 of the code. So after running this line of code, our updated data table is shown at the bottom in the RStudio console. And as you can see, we have added a new variable to our data table, which is called leg1. And the first cell of this data table column is NA, because in this row we were not able to perform a calculation because we couldn't leg to the upper row of the column x2. However, in the second row you can see that we have performed our calculation. So in this case we have multiplied the value 2 with the legged version, or with a legged row of the column x2. So in this case 2 times 7 is equal to 14, and the same for the remaining rows. So for example, 3 times 6 is 18, and 4 times 5 is 20. So as you have seen in this first example, I have applied a calculation to the legged version of a column. However, it's also possible to apply a calculation to even earlier rows of our data table. And we can do that, as you can see in line 13 of the code. So in this line of code, I'm again creating a new variable, which we call leg3. And in this variable, I want to calculate the values in x1 times the shifted version of the variable x2. And I want to use the values that are stored in 3 rows before the row in which I'm calculating the new column. So if you run line 13 of the code, you can see that the data table is updated once again, and we can print the updated version of our data table to the RStudio console by running line 14. And then you can see that we have updated our data table once again, and this time we have added a new variable which is called leg3. And as you can see, this variable contains the multiplied values of our row, of our column x1, times the value that is 3 rows above in the column x2. So for instance, 4 times 7 is 28, and 5 times 6 is 13. So in this tutorial I have explained how to use the previous row of a data table using the R programming language. However, in case you want to learn more on this topic, you could check out my homepage statisticsglobe.com, because on my homepage I have recently published a tutorial in which I'm explaining the R programming code that I have used in this video in some more detail, and I will put a link to this tutorial into the description of the video. Furthermore, if you have liked the video, I would be very happy if you leave me some positive feedback in the comments. And make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get notifications in future when I'm releasing new videos to the channel. That's it for this video. Thanks a lot. See you next time.